Rescue, find, attack, rescue again. Find Zenobia again. Okay. Alright, so I did one with the armature. Find, attack. And then go to the base this time, I think is what I have to do. Sorry, Daisy. I hate sneezing. Sitting on the floor, letting my legs fall asleep. To let a dog sleep in it. Best choice I've made ever. Luckily, since I have everything max, I can kind of rush through a little bit more.
Was Lapino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Renata felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Renata never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think much.
Sorry, but
Just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it?
In the past, we couldn't. But hey. With the knowledge of what he does. Ooh, there's something over here. Sorry. I was interested. It's a little shitty one. Mine. Ow.
Boy, if looks could kill. There had to be a way to use the Sky Ripper without causing a catastrophe. Why? Maybe it's always dangerous, he imagined Zenobia saying. Always the voice of reason, that one. Well, there had to be a way to use the Sky Ripper because not being able to use it was boring. So there.
I'll let my guard down for a second. Alright. Free health. What's this way? I'm trying to find the quickest way through. Because if I can find a quick way through this, then this would all become a lot more tolerable. Except slash. Oh shit. Slash.
puzzle. Renato loved puzzles, except when he couldn't figure them out. On the other hand, if there was a puzzle, it was probably meant to keep people away from something good. Skyripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway. The device, how is it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Skyripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach.
I gotta go for her.
Zenobia had just invaded
Still.
it with her father's Raven battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it? He didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him. Renato asked himself why he changed course to confront Zenobia. He'd no idea. Sometime. The truth is, though, he wanted to see her, wasn't it? It had been a dozen years since Swordfu School. He'd followed every rumor about her, every scrap of news. Not that he still loved her. After all, she was his enemy. No, it was solely because, know your enemy. All right, maybe he should stop pretending. He knew exactly how she felt about him. But their love affair always ended with a tragic death. Unless, maybe he could find a way to dodge tragedy. Surely he could, couldn't he?
Oh, what does the fox say?
Asked one raven. Another one called back.
Oh, I'm dying!
They both laughed hysterically. Hero wall, hero sword, firewall,
Fire extinguisher.
extinguisher.
I wish that's how that worked.
He couldn't do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with the core, could he?
Say goodnight, Gracie, said Renato, wondering who Gracie was.
Naming people that I don't even know.
Renato wasn't entirely sure how he was going to capture Zenobia. She'd be expecting him. And he didn't have Lapino to cook up a clever plan. Why was it again that he hadn't got the core?
Maybe because the results tended to be disastrous.
These streets were familiar. The Swordfu School was closed now, but he had been down that street 1,000 times. He knew that pub. He knew that alley. He knew the alley behind it much too well. No wonder Zenobia had chosen to invade this island herself. Renato slinked through Zenobia's
I accidentally skipped this last time, so this time I'm gonna not skip
Where
it.
were her guards? Finally, he reached her bedroom. She was curled up on her bed. Oh, he'd forgotten how beautiful she was. How sleek, How soft. He tapped her on the shoulder with his sword. She vanished. And he suddenly noticed he couldn't move except his mouth. In fact, Sudi couldn't keep his mouth shut. He told Zenobia everything. Skyripper, the rebellion plans, even where the secret rebel base was, until he was hoarse.
A talkie truth spell.
Some kind of truth spell. A talkie truth spell. She called her father by Farspeaker Toad and filled His Majesty in.
But why didn't he get the core?
Croaked the Farspeaker in something like His Majesty's croak. Because I missed you, darling. Renato grinned. He doesn't even know why, frowned Zenobia.
That makes no sense. It's a trap.
Shouted the Emperor.
I'll meet you at the outpost, and I'll bring my interrogators.
If Renato came face to face with the Emperor, maybe he could assassinate him. But maybe it would be smarter and safer to turn Zenobia against her father.
Nope, I'm gonna go.
You're lying, she said. Somehow you're lying. The spell hadn't worn off yet. He had to tell the truth. The trick was in making sure she wouldn't believe it. The core is perfectly safe, he said. And he tried his hardest to sound sincere. In fact, I almost went to get it myself. Fine then, interrogators it is, she said angrily. I gave you a chance. The Emperor's interrogators were not especially gentle, even by Weasel standards. Fortunately, Zenobia had locked him in the guest...
There. Skip by. My dog likes to sleep in laps too much. Ugh.
It was a short, safe landing. At least this part of the Nexus hadn't changed too much. Zenobia had been taking him to the Imperial outpost. She'd never expect him to go there by himself. Well, maybe she would. You never knew with her. Renato felt surprisingly unwounded. Renato knew
This is
Zenobia,
getting
and
easy.
Zenobia knew him. She'd suspected a trick. Now he'd vanished. She would probably guess that was his plan all along. Perfect. Maybe she wouldn't use the Skyripper. At least not without taking it to the scientists at the observatory first. Meanwhile, the Emperor would be coming to the outpost personally. This could be good.
And I'm experiencing a lot. Only problem with hunting for everything in this game is it starts repeating itself a lot as you go through all the options. I'm glad I'm at least remembering my changes or able to look back to see what my changes were so I don't repeat anything. I wish I could just press and hold and not have to.
Renato was face to face with the Emperor's bodyguard. They looked very tough, but the Emperor held them back.
Oh, where's my...
Well, that's a job well done, thought Reynardo. Now,
Betrayal.
all sorts of distant,
Rah.
but maybe he could find her in the mountains. She always used to go to the mountains to hide from the world.
I feel like Zenobia and this next one's just gonna come back and murder me for some
Reap the
reason.
benefits of the chaos he had sown. It was time to report to the Rebel Council. Then launch the attack on a divided and very confused Imperial fleet.
Yeah.
Reynardo was very proud of himself. He told the Empire everything, but now they didn't believe anything, and it looked like the Emperor didn't trust his daughter anymore either. There were some advantages to having a slippery reputation, weren't there?
I just don't like that we just destroyed her life. Even though she's getting sacrificed in one story. Poor Zenobia. Too bad, so sad. That's about all I can say. One story we got the girl, but then we died 5 minutes later.
Reynardo wondered if he'd really fooled the Empire. He guessed he'd know soon enough. If the skies darkened with 1,000 dropships, then he'd know the Empire believed his map of the Rebel base's secret location. They certainly seemed to be looking for it. There were ravens everywhere. But where weren't there ravens these days? He thought about Hypatia. Oh, she'd been an amazing rabbit. She could talk to him about comics, and talk to her son about history and battles, and talk to scholars about the ancient tomes hidden deep in the vaults of the Library of Ubar. Oh, Reynardo really missed her.
Interesting. I wonder why I'm thinking about her now all of a sudden. In the past, I didn't think about her. It's only when I've thought about the Sky River for some reason.
Maybe the Emperor would attack Zenobia. The Ravens, divided into two armies, would slaughter each other. Then the rebellion could just show up and claim victory. The council would be overjoyed that Reynardo had given away all their secrets. See? It was actually very fine weather, except for the occasional shower of rain. And no one was burning the ruins down with the mighty power of a god's eye. If the Empire believed anything he'd said, they certainly weren't showing it. Reynardo was remembering all his old tricks, and some new ones. Now, he really ought to ask for a raise.
Oh, I got stuck on that. That was my bad.
Long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good. next life.
Well, that didn't work.
As he told his hilarious adventures to the Rebel Council, he began to realize they weren't laughing. Just staring at him with those big bug eyes.
Zenobia let you escape?
Asked the speaker.
How do we know you're not a double agent?
Then I wouldn't tell you about her at all.
Maybe you're trying to sound like an idiot, so we don't realize how clever you are.
Croaked the speaker. No, I promise you, I really am that much of an idiot. Renato was about to say when a half-dozen Imperial ships began to bomb the base.
He's betrayed us!
Croaked the toads, and Renato decided it would be good to be somewhere else. He boarded the Farfarer and got out there. The wind ruffled Renato's fur the wrong way. So, the rebels thought he was lying too? Because a half-dozen lousy dropships had probably just tripped over the rebel base? Okay, technically, he had betrayed its location, but not willingly. And he'd made up for it, hadn't he? Then, something exploded. A cannon shot. The Farfarer plunged out of the clouds. The rebels had hit his ship. As the Farfarer plummeted towards the abyss, he launched himself into the sails of an Imperial ship.
Well, that's what you get for betraying everyone.
The Farfarer was gone. It had been a beautiful ship. And fast. It could do the Kester run in 12 furlongs. Or so the salesman had told him. He would show them. He would be the hero of the final battle. They'd know whose side he was on then. That's what it meant to be a hero. To go on fighting, even when both sides were trying...
Daisy, you're making my feet
to learn new skills. If only he'd take the time to figure out which. Rebels were fighting ravens everywhere, and not a super weapon in sight. No one was summoning giant murder birds out of the clouds. There were no locusts, no rain of fire. Something blew up nearby, and Renato decided it was not time to stop and ponder. Just as well. He liked acting much better than pondering.
And where will I end up? Oh, I'm going by the big ship this time. I don't understand how why they just let us up.
Finally, Renato reached the Emperor's ship, and there he saw a strange sight. Zenobia being led in shackles by Lapino with a squad of ravens. What? Lapino was working with the ravens? Was he some sort of traitor? Of course Lapino was working with the ravens. But the Emperor still thought Zenobia was a traitor? Renato felt oddly bad about that. Should he run down there and rescue her? Oh, but she was the enemy. Then he heard a whistling sound. He looked straight up and saw a rebel ship. It was dropping rather large bombs. One of them kept getting bigger as it fell. Huh? Oh. He should go back to some of the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new
Oh, the
powers that
Lapino
were
ending.
like those
Interesting.
doors
Here
into
keeps
the
fighting
wall
even when
of
both sides are
the
trying to
could have
kill
been new
him.
treasures and around
Yay!
and
So there's one more Lapino ending, there's 3 more Zenobia endings, there's a lot with the Ibius Eye, and 4 more Armorite ones.
the book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again.
I just am trying to catch them all.
The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel
Okay,
base.
so this time I'm going to try to convince Zenobia to go against the father.
Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert.
I
The
still
Emperor
want to
had
mess with
built a
this
shrine
Iblis
for
Eye
the
yet.
ancient burial by his obscene ritual.
Cause I don't know what happens once I get all 4 truths.
The Iblis stone was hidden. Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had
I
betrayed
wouldn't
her.
know why. Every time you've gone through Lapino's ending, you've gotten betrayed. Build the Sky Ripper.
The transcendent Emperor had buried its pieces deep.
I'm systematically doing this. I'm not sure if that's fun or not. Oh, my legs are aching. I don't like sitting in this position for so long. Ah, God. How long has it been, anyways?
As he set foot in the island, Renato couldn't help feeling a bit curious. Was Lapino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Renato felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Renato never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it? What's behind door number 2? to be a way to use the Sky Ripper without causing a catastrophe. Why? Maybe it's always dangerous, he imagined Zenobia saying. Always the voice of reason, that one. Well, there had to be a way to use the Sky Ripper, because not being able to use it was boring. So there. A chest that shiny deserved to be opened.
Yeah, I kinda screwed up there.
Once again, Renata was dead right. Or actually just dead.
I was dead right, not dead. Too many at once. Shit. And dead.
See? With enough leverage, you could go anywhere. There it was. Sky Ripper's
Next
arms.
option, let's go.
Stuff that dreams are made of. Engineered. How is part of a weapon at all? You'd have to ask a scientist. First, he'd get the second piece. Sky Ripper had a heart, a core that had come to rest in the next island. Well, there was.
We gotta go see Zenobia and go try to convince her to not kill her father. I mean, to kill her father.
She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get.
I just wish they wouldn't talk so much on these voice
He
choices.
didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him.
But, I just,
Himself.
this is just a better option. There's many endings to find in this.
The truth is, though, he wanted to see her, wasn't it? It had been a dozen years since Sword through school. He'd followed every rumor about her, every scrap of news. Not that he still loved her. After all, she was his enemy. No, it was solely because know your enemy. All right, maybe he should stop pretending. He knew exactly how she felt about him. But their love affair always ended with a tragic death. Unless, maybe he could find a way to dodge tragedy. Surely he could, couldn't he? could you convince a firewall you're its friend? He couldn't do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with the core, could he? These things could really use a hand. Renato wasn't entirely sure how he was going to capture Zenobia. She'd be expecting him. And he didn't have Lapino to cook up a clever plan. Why was it again that he hadn't got the core? Maybe because the result tended to be disastrous. These streets were familiar. The Swordfu School was closed now, but he had been down that street 1,000 times. He knew that pub. He knew that alley. He knew the alley behind it much too well. No wonder Zenobia had chosen to invade this island herself. Renato slinked through Zenobia's ship, making no sound.
Blah blah blah, I get captured, I told everything, I got to go through here. It's a trap.
Shouted the Emperor.
I'll meet you at the outpost, and I'll bring my interrogators.
If Renato came face to face with the Emperor,
Maybe you could assassinate him.
But maybe
Both times they tried it went
smarter
wrong.
and safer to turn Zenobia against her father.
Let's go ahead.
What are you doing? Asked Zenobia. Did you ever wonder why the Emperor adopted you? He asked her. She shook her head. He told her. His Majesty wanted to bring the lost gods back. They could make him an eater of souls, an immortal. But to seal his bargain with them, he needed a sacrifice. Someone who truly loved him. She was stunned. Furious. You're lying. Under a truth spell? It's a trick. You can't prove that. Take me to the observatory, and I will.
Okay, so we, instead of just regular going there, I get to take her there to the observatory where it's probably burning down, except Lapino doesn't know, so it probably won't be burned down. Hopefully. Unless it's destined to burn down, and I feel sorry for all those poor, defenseless little frogs.
What kind of proof could you possibly have? She said as they landed on the Nexus. Your father ritually sacrificed a village, and he left witnesses? The scientists resurrected one. Well, it's not really alive, but it can talk. A true witness. She frowned. The dead can't lie. Well, I bet they could. They just don't have any reason to. She nodded grimly. You go on ahead. I don't want the Ravens to see me.
She's so nice, though. Like, her intents are good. Only thing is, at least this time I didn't destroy her life. Or at least not her reputation. By now I've been through this area 1,000 times over. Went the wrong way.
She caught up with him, Don't you think I'd know if my father wanted to invoke the Lost Gods? Would he tell you? No. Would you help him? No. I'd burn his books. Why'd he adopt a stray cat? You don't ask a thing like that. No, not when there's no good answer, she said, her whiskers twitching.
Well then, gotta be rude about it, I see. Good old Naruto, it's making everyone feel like shit. Just a lovely person to be around. You ruin her life for your own deeds, and then you take her in one timeline. You're just a wonderful person.
The scientist at the observatory had a true witness to one of the Emperor's blasphemous rituals. The dead could be made to speak for a short while. Interestingly, they could not be made to lie. After all, what do they have to lose or gain by lying? These were no ordinary cannonballs.
Alpha.
Ordinary cannonballs were black.
I don't even know if I'm going in the right direction in this area. This area has always been kinda... Yep, I'm in the right direction. They're dead no matter what happens, it seems. So nice of them to make them feel like welcome people in
The
society.
observatory was a burning hulk. Dead scientists and black feathers everywhere. The ravens had burned the reanimated witness to cinders. Renato was stunned. There goes my proof. These were scientists, not rebels, Zenobia said, upset. Why would he do this? I don't know. Let's go to the fleet and ask him. Yes. I'll meet you on the mountains. There's something I have to get first. But could he afford to meet her in the mountains? He'd given the Empire the location of the secret rebel base. They would need rescuing.
I'm trusting Zenobia for this one.
Why was he going to meet up with her? Wasn't it more important to rescue the Rebel Council from the almost certain Imperial attack? Why was he in this war anyway? Was it really to fight the good fight, or did he just want to see her again? One of these days, Renato thought, I should really figure out my motives before I pounce. Nah.
Of course you wouldn't ever do that. Who would do that?
Was it true? Was he on this adventure just to see Zenobia again? The Imperial heir was not an easy cat to see. Well, she'd ignored all his Kwanzaa gifts. And on the other paw, trying to get a date by joining a war against your intended was, let's say, pretty optimistic. But on the back paw, thought Renato. Yes, it sounded exactly like him. Good. I'm so glad we had this little chat, he told himself.
Time to bust some more face in.
There were a lot of dead ravens along the side of the road. Someone had rampaged through here on a killing spree.
What had Zenobia gone to get? He had a chilling feeling. He could recognize her blade work in the wounds of the dead bird. Surely her father's soldier beneath her.
And it'd be more of a threat than you even realized.
Long live the Emperor! Call the ravens.
Please don't tell me this is an Iblis Stone truth. I don't want to know what it does, because I don't want to know what happens when I find out all four truths. Well, I kinda do, but I don't want it to, like, ruin my game or something. What does she have? It's giving her...
The summit, expecting no one. But there she was, steaming, pacing.
I'm gonna kill him, she said. I'm gonna kill all these ravens, and then him, and then his family, and all the eggs and tadpoles. And then I'm gonna burn down their pond.
Did you go and get the Iblis stone?
You see, all these ravens I killed. So much power.
Are you feeling normal? Because you're
Because you seem a little bloodthirsty.
Yes, obviously it wants blood. Demons always want blood.
You really want power from a demonic rock?
You want the stone, don't you?
Not really.
Good. I'd rather not have to kill you.
He told her he loved her. That he wouldn't let the Iblis stone take her, even if he had to die for it. Well, he planned to tell her. Now didn't seem like the right time.
She'd probably cool off in a bit.
So he let her get in her ship and fly off.
He rushed back to the Farfarer and followed her, keeping a healthy distance.
Zenobia's ship was just visible through the clouds ahead. How could he reason with her? But he had to. The rebels were down for the count. No wonder. He betrayed the location of their base and then he'd abandoned them. And if she became Empress while she was in the grip of the Iblis Stone, If she became empress by murdering her father, she could still be a great empress. But she could also be a nightmare empress.
Hey,
Had to be stopped.
Daisy. So now I have to stop the person I let get this. I'll save the rebel next time, and then I'll probably get murdered by Zenobia. This sadly became an Iblis Stone truth, I think. So let's see what happens when I get all 4 truths.
There were more dead ravens along his path. Some of them wounded in the back. He knew she could have easily talked her way past them, or clouded the little tiny raven brains with a spell. He had of a way to kill everything in her path. This wasn't Zenobia. Not as he knew her.
This was Demon Zenobia.
The portal was heavily guarded. It must go someplace they really didn't want it to go.
I don't have anyone to talk to.
Actual heck.
And he was just dead.
Daisy needs.
So, his beloved was possessed by the spirit of a demon. That's what it meant to be a hero. To brave the darkness in your loved one's soul. To have faith there was still good in her. To help her out of that darkness, no matter what the cost. But what? What could he do? She'd kill him if he tried to take the Iblis Stone from her.
Check, please.
the end of the trail of raven corpses was Zenobia. Her father was frantically rigging a strange apparatus wrapped around a glowing core. "Don't do it!" he shouted. "You'll hate yourself in the morning. Stay back!" She screamed in a horrible voice he'd never heard before. It froze him in his tracks. The Emperor stared at him. "Run," he told the toad, "or hop." But he didn't manage to voice it, only think it. Zenobia stabbed her blade forward, and His Majesty fell dead. She began laughing hysterically. Or was she weeping? "Just walk away," she laughed at him. "I've no more use for you." There was something he needed to do, but he couldn't figure out what it was. So he did as he was told. As he walked away, he felt a chill in the world. The light in the sky seemed to dim. He didn't dare turn. He had a nagging feeling there was something he should have done just then. Something heroic. But he could not have taken the Iblis stone from her by force, and she would not have parted with it willingly. A cold wind blew from where she had been, but he still didn't dare turn. And then, an awful laughter filled the air, and all the torches and all the ships went out, and he realized what he should have done. But by then, it was too late to do anything. He should go back to some of the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new paths that had opened up, like those doors he was opening up all over the map that took him to new treasures and around his enemies. And he hadn't learned anything new this time.
Good.
He
I didn't want to
the
learn
same thing
anything
twice,
new
yet
yet.
expected a different outcome. The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again, faster than before, and he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble.
They needed a game changer.
A secret rebel base.
I'm getting tired of hearing this one line. You hear it every single time.
Bernardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong, but he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals.
I don't want
Could
the
this be
Iblis
where the
stone.
Iblis stone was
Sounds
found?
like it's a really
Someone
bad
better
thing.
get it before thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens? Every child knew about the sky.
Need one more break.
As he set foot on the island, Renato couldn't help feeling a bit curious. Was Lupino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Renato felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Renato never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it?
There we go. Just had to move so my feet didn't fall asleep. What are you doing, kicking me in the back? And dead.
Didn't your mother tell you it's rude to stare? Snapped Renato, a little smug.
to be a way to use the Sky Ripper without causing a catastrophe. Why? Maybe it's always dangerous, he imagined Zenobia saying. Always the voice of reason, that one. Well, there had to be a way to use the Sky Ripper because not being able to use it was boring. So there.
Free health. And wait for the switch. They go by and boom, they're dead. And so are you.
Sky Ripper's armature.
Yay.
The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway. How is it part of a weapon at all? You'd have to ask a scientist.
Yourself one more choice down the path of Zenobia, which is just go try to save the people at the base. I don't think that's gonna work that well.
There was another island he could reach. Zenobia had just invaded it with her father's Raven battalion. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed.
Why you gotta talk down the idea so much? It actually might be a good idea.
He didn't need to hurry to face
So far I've found it's not a good idea, but it could have been a good idea.
Renato asked himself why he changed course to confront. The truth is, though, he wanted to see her, wasn't it? It had been a dozen years since Swordfu School. He'd followed every rumor about her, every scrap of news. Not that he still loved her. After all, she was his enemy. No, it was solely because, know your enemy. All right, maybe he should stop pretending. He knew exactly how she felt about him. But their love affair always ended with a tragic death. Unless, maybe he could find a way to dodge tragedy. Surely he could, couldn't he? Do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with the core, could he?
Let's go on a magical ride.
Reynardo wasn't entirely sure how he was going to capture Zenobia. She'd be expecting him. And he didn't have Lapino to cook up a clever plan. Why was it again that he hadn't got the core?
Maybe because the results tended to be disastrous.
These streets were familiar. His sword was closed. He had been down that street 1,000 times. He knew that
What are you doing?
He knew that alley. He knew the alley behind it much too well. No wonder Zenobia had chosen to invade his island herself. Reynardo slinked through Zenobia's ship, making no sound at all. Where were her guards? Finally, he reached her bedroom. She was curled up on her bed. Oh, he'd forgotten how beautiful she was. How sleek, how soft.
That makes no sense. It's a trap.
Shouted the Emperor.
I'll meet you at the outpost, and I'll bring my interrogators.
If Reynardo came face to face with the Emperor, maybe he could assassinate him. But maybe it would be smarter and safer to turn Zenobia against her father.
What are you doing? Asked Zenobia. Did you ever wonder?
So, let's see how this turns out.
What kind of proof could you possibly have?
Just because I need help, I'm going this way. There we go.
Nice chests. He should take one home, he thought.
She caught up with him.
Scientists at the observatory had a true witness to one of the Emperor's blasphemous rituals. The dead could be made to speak for a short while. Interestingly, they could not be made to lie. After all, what do they have to lose or gain by lying? Energy cannons, the last argument of kings.
know they're burning down. I feel so bad, they're burning down.
The observatory was a burning hulk. Dead scientists and black feathers everywhere. The Ravens had burned the reanimated witness to cinders. Renato was stunned. I don't know. Let's go to the fleet and ask him. Yes. I'll meet you in the mountains. There's something I have to get first. But could he afford to meet her in the mountains? He'd given the Empire the location
I can't,
of the secret
because this is my
base.
last option.
They would need rescue.
If I could, I would, but I don't want the same outcome.
Renato was torn. He wanted Zenobia to see the truth of her father. But she could get the truth out of her father faster without him tagging along. Meanwhile, the fleet would soon be knocking on the door of the secret rebel base. Renato had better be there when they did.
Your reasonings are terrible. Honestly, I don't want to go get the Iblis Stone in the future, like, ever, because I feel like that's going to be a bad idea.
So he had given Skyripper's core to the Empire. He felt stupid about that. He hoped the Emperor didn't bring the Skyripper against the base. There was nothing he could do to fight a legendary weapon. Renato hated when he screwed up. One of these days, he would learn to look before he pounced. But today is not that day. He intoned for his own amusement. Renato decided not to tell the Council he'd given the Empire Skyripper's core and the location of the secret base. They needed him in battle, not in the brig, right? The Raven was slumped in a pile of its own feathers, like a tree in November.
What?
Can't stop us. The Emperor has a weapon no warrior can defend against.
What happened to you? Renato asked. But the Raven chose that moment to go to the great nest in the sky.
What?
So they'd made the core into a weapon. That wasn't good.
I'm going this way. Fuck, hit him out.
You know what I hate about you guys? Everything.
These things really slice like ham. long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. He was on fire. So far, so good.
And what happens this time? The weapon comes, destroys the armament, and everybody dies.
Never slain so many ravens. The secret base was gonna stink of burnt feathers for months. The council speaker was confused.
Our spies say Zenobia has gone berserk. She attacked and destroyed an entire squadron of dropships.
This was amazing good news. He'd shown her the Emperor's evil. Now she'd gone over to the rebel side. Now is our moment. Attack! Renato exulted. They could win this thing. Zenobia commanded half the fleet. Who would follow the mad Emperor when they could follow his heir, who was wise and smart and a brilliant sorceress besides? But what about the core and the Iblis Stone? What evil could the Emperor wreak with those?
As he closed in on
core
the Imperial
only.
fleet, Renato liked his odds.
You might like your odds, but you're as good as dead. Because she's gonna be like, why did you show up and then murder you? Or you're gonna try to stop her. Because you have the balls this time. Both will turn out well. But I think this is pretty cool. All your choices actually matter.
How had he gotten into this mess? He'd never set out to be a hero. When he was a kid, he'd wanted to be a great cat burglar, until his mother had explained about foxes and cats. And then the Emperor had gone mad, and started sacrificing kittens to the lost gods. There were a lot of dead ravens here. Who had slain them?
I don't know, maybe the...
The portal that led right into the middle of the fleet. It was a glaring weakness in the defense.
Shall we dance?
Good, the lead raven. There were raven bodies everywhere. The precision of the wounds. Renato recognized her style.
It appeared that she was single-handedly turning the tide of the battle. Good. That left the Emperor with only the core. Against him, all the rebels, his daughter and her ravens. He wished he was fighting alongside her. But they'd meet up soon enough.
She already killed her ravens.
Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Again. This time, he'd make an end of him. He'd screwed up last time, but he had a good feeling about this time.
After this one gets through, I'm going to take a short break, and then I might start another broadcast of this. It's just that I'm playing for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours by
The
now.
Emperor was frantically readying some arcane instrument, brass and hammered steel wrapped around a glowing, thrumming sphere. Skyripper's core. Zenobia! Renato shouted. But he had no idea what else to say. Revenge! She shouted as she cut the last bodyguard down. A ray lanced out of the sphere. Everything around her burst into flames, but her sword seemed only to absorb it. She walked towards Isengrim III like she was walking against a river. Nothing could stop her. They were going to win. Zenobia stabbed the Emperor dead and flicked the moaning apparatus off. She was laughing hysterically. Or weeping, maybe. They had won. He ran to her. I killed my own father. She wept, and he held her. He told her he loved her. He would pull her back from the brink of madness. Core thrummed louder and louder. At that moment, Renato understood that the core was going to explode catastrophically. And this could have been victory. The Emperor and his daughter dead, the fleet destroyed. He'd almost been a hero. A legendary one, maybe. If only he and the rebel fleet hadn't been here.
And everyone
Some of
exploded.
the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new paths that had opened up. Like those doors he was opening up all over the map that took him to new treasures and around his enemies. And he hadn't learned anything new this time. He'd done the same thing twice, yet expected a different outcome.
Well, as I said, I'm gonna take a short little break so I can move and stretch and stuff, and then I'm gonna start up another stream in a few minutes.